Welcome to Ask a Fear Online. This is Chef Thomas. Thank you for joining us at 9:30 here for Kitchen Math Madness. We have a lot to talk about in a very short time. Kitchen math is very, very important. Let me come back a little bit right to the very beginning why it is so important before we jump right into the math. Just to prepare yourself, if you're possible in course 4 already with us, it would be a good idea to get to your standard recipe cards, the one with the fried egg. We're going to go through that in a couple minutes, but let's go back to why kitchen math is so important. This is just one of a couple different classes. I'm going to be talking about math and problems we hear a lot students have. In the last 20 years or so, I've been a chef. Math has been really a very integral part of my job. Not only to make money, but actually to convert correctly and to manipulate recipes in a way that they also work. There's nothing worse than having a recipe which maybe your grandma did or your mom for 4 or 5 people, for a family, and then you continuously creating this recipe and you think it's very, very good, and then you're going to try it for 50, then you try it for 100, maybe you're going to do it for a banquet for 1,000 people, but you're not able to create the same recipe because you're doing something wrong with the conversion. So the number one problem I see with culinary students and culinarians in the work field is actually that they do not know how to convert measurements. Measurements are crucial. If I don't know how many ounces are in a cup, I cannot convert correctly. So let's take a piece of paper, if you could, and write these things down. They're also in course 4. But I want to make sure that you have that right now in front of you. We're starting with volume. Volume is a liquid measurement. We are talking about gallons, pints, and cups. All recipes I've ever worked with have some kind of volume described. Most of the time it's cups, third cups, half cups. If I don't know how many ounces, it is going to be very difficult to convert those recipes into a larger mass. So if you remember, your milk comes in a gallon, comes also in quarts, but let's talk about a large gallon container of milk. That is 128 ounces. So if you want to write down 1 gallon equals 128 ounces, that would be a good start. Now, we go down to quarts. There's 4 quarts in each gallon. So 4 quarts in each gallon. So you can write down 1 gallon equals also 4 quarts. Each quart holds 2 pints. So you want to write down 1 quart equals 2 pints. Write also down that 1 pint equals 2 cups. Now we're going to go the other direction and we write the ounces down. 1 cup of volume measurement holds 8 ounces of liquid. A pint, because there's 2 cups in a pint, that would be 2 times 8, that is 16 ounces. A quart, there's 2 pints in a quart, that would be 32 ounces. So you see how this math works out very quickly, and you can go up and down the scale. You can either go by gallons, quarts, pints, and cups, or you can go by the ounces, 128, 64 for 2 quarts, 32 for 1 quart, 16 for the pints, and 8 for the cups. This is very crucial to understand and to use all the time. When we go into the recipe costing in a second here, it's very important that I can take 1 gallon of milk and divide it by 4. I need to know how many ounces are in there because otherwise I will not be able to do the math correctly and the conversions. So this was volume. Let's go very quickly to your solid measurements, which is a pound. A pound has 16 ounces. So if I have a pound of flour, that's 16 ounces. I want to weigh that because especially flour is very tricky. If you have a recipe which calls for, let's say, 8 ounces of flour, you cannot use a cup measurement. Volume and weight is not the same for many, many ingredients. So let me tell you this one more time. You cannot use for 8 ounces of flour a cup measurement. If you do this at home, please try that. Take 8 ounces from the scale and try to fit it into a cup measurement. It will not work. Most flours can only pack about 4 to 4.5 ounces of dry weight into a volume 1 cup container. That would dramatically influence your recipe. Would you agree? You would lose 3.5 ounces of flour, meaning your cake would not bake right, your bread would not bake right, your sauce would not thicken correctly, and so on forth. So be very clear to read recipes very well if it asks for volume or for dry measurement, which would be measured by a scale. There's smaller measurements. There's tablespoon and teaspoons. You can remember that. There's a 1/2 ounce in each tablespoon. There's 3 teaspoons in each tablespoon, which would make it 1/6 of a tablespoon. Sorry. So those are the other measurements you're going to be working with. Pinches, smudgeons, shots, and dashes. These are very hard to measure. Usually there's something we add in very, very small amounts. Actually, a shot, if you are drinking, is anywhere between 2 ounces and 1.5 ounces. So you can use a shot glass for that one. So that was our short visit on our measurements, dry and volume. The next step I want to show you is actually going through the recipe. We have a recipe for fried eggs. We're going to pull this up now on the screen. You won't see me, but you will see the recipe. Any recipe you make at home for assessment purposes or just for cooking, you gotta go grocery shopping most of the time, right? So you go to a grocery store and you buy all your product. Each of your products will come for a price. Nothing is for free. Now, if I have the price and then I have the amounts of how much I need, I can automatically figure out what the total cost is, or what we call actually the actual cost for each ingredient, and figure out the total cost for the recipe. So if you look at the screen right now, you see the fried egg dish from our course 4, and we go together through the math. I picked this particular recipe because I want to point out one small mistake in our program, which we get a lot of phone calls about, and I want to make sure that everybody is on the same page when in the future you're going to actually do this. Good. Let's start at the top. We have some information here on that standardized recipe card, which is very, very important. First of all, we have the name, fried eggs. We have to figure out the total cost. We have to figure out the portion cost. We have to figure out, we actually see the portion size, it's 100 grams. We have a sales price as 30%. We're actually not going that far to figure out the sales price today. This will be another class when we talk about food costing. And we know that there's 2 portions. The price is going to be going for $9, and we don't know the food cost yet. All right, we have specifications. We have the weight in ounces, cups, and units. I'm basically just reading through that recipe card right now. You can follow me here if you're on the computer on chapter 4. Cost per ounces, cups, and units, and then the actual, which is empty. By the way, if you have any questions, please make sure you are asking those right now. We have a little bit of a delay, so as fast I get these questions, as better it is, and I can answer those for you. All right? So let's go for our first item here. We're having 4 eggs. They are, or 4 each, it says here. They're $3.60 per dozen. Very simple. There's $3.60 for 12. A dozen is 12, right? So we take $3.60. We divided that by 12, and we multiply it by 4. So I take 3.6. I will do this on my calculator with you. So if you have a calculator maybe on the phone, that would be perfect right now. 3.60 divided by 12 gives you 0.3. We need 4 eggs, multiply by 4, gives us a total actual cost for the eggs of $1.20. So we write that in the first line, $1.20 under the actual cost. So everybody's still with me at this point, I hope. Let's go to the next one. We have $0.06 ounces. 0.06 0.14 ounces for $0.06 per ounce. So we take 0.06 and we multiply it by 0.14. And this gives me 0.0084. So this is a that's a four decimal number. So we need to now round this to 2 decimals. Most accounting is done in 2 decimals. So if the number is 0.0084, 4 rounds up, 4 rounds down, 8 rounds up. So we would have to actually write down 0.01. So write down the second actual cost line, 0.01. Okay, our next ingredient, we need 0.03 ounces. And we multiply that by 0.57 dollars per ounce. So 0.57 and multiply that by 0.03 gives us 0.017. We're going to round that up to 0.02. So we're doing this for all the ingredients. Now, maybe you're going to ask now, where did I actually get the cost per ounce? All right, so the cost per ounce I take from a whole product, let's say butter or salt, and if let's say butter is $2 for 16 ounces, I take the $2 and divide 16 into it. Then I would have the ounce price. With liquid ingredients, let's say oil, I buy a bottle of oil for $5. It's a pint, so there's 16 ounces in it. Take 5 and divide it by 16. That gives me the ounce price. So this works with every ingredient. Again, it goes back to what I was just telling you at the beginning. You need to know how to convert the measurements. If I don't know what a pound is in ounces, I will have a very hard time deciphering what the ounce price is. So be sure that you keep this in mind, what you wrote down, how many ounces in a gallon, and so forth. Let's take milk. Most of the time I buy milk for $1.99 for a gallon. So you take $1.99 and you divide it by 128, and you would actually receive the ounce price for milk, which then I can take into any recipe and multiply to whatever I need. If I need 3 ounces of milk, wouldn't matter, I can multiply that by 3. If I take 15, if I take more than a gallon, it would not matter, because I can take that ounce price times 265 ounces and multiply it correctly. So you see, this is a very important process. Now let's go to our recipe, and this is now very important. If you haven't tried this yet, you will see that there's a small mistake in here. There's actually a comma mistake in our program. So the next item should actually be 0.07 ounces of weight times $0.12 per ounce. This is very important because in our program it says 0.70, and that does not work out. So one more time, the last ingredient here is, you can obviously not make the marking on the computer screen, but you should do it on paper. Take 0.07 times 0.12, and that gives you rounded 0.01. So I have all my actual costs now together for the fried eggs. I have $1.20, 0.01, 0.02, and 0.01. I add these all together, and I get a total cost from $1.24. And you can see this now on your screen. The total cost for these, for this fried egg dish is $1.24. Now it says on top of that recipe card that there is 2 portions. So if I want to get the portion cost just for one person, I need to divide the $1.24 by 2 and get 62 cents per serving, what we also call per serving. So does not sound very complicated when you go step for step through it. Again, let's just go for the technique quickly here for what we just did. So we looked at each of the ingredients. We converted the ingredients to an ounce price. Again, this could be, go again with milk. I pay $1.99 for 128 ounces. I divide $1.99 by 128. I get an ounce price for that. that ounce price now I can multiply into whatever ounces I need for the recipe. I do this with every single ingredient, and I get a total cost. I take the total cost, divide it into whatever portions I've just done for this recipe. This works for cakes, this works for soups, this works for anything. Let's think about a recipe for a cake. Let's say the total cost of your eggs, your flour, your sugar, your milk, your frosting, your filling comes to $12. You're $12 now for the whole cake, but you only serve one portion, which is one slice. So let's say out of those $12, you cut the cake in, let's say, 6 pieces. Those are big pieces. But that would be very easy math, right? I take 12 divided by 6. Each of the pieces would be $2. So I can apply this to cakes, or to soups. Let's go to a soup. I make soup, and I make, let's say I make a gallon of soup. It's 128 ounces. And I feed 10 people. So that would mean that I give everybody about 12.8 ounces, right? So 128 divided by 10. So it's 12.8 ounces. Plus minus a little bit on the ladle. Just keep it, 12.8 right now. So if the soup cost me $10, each of these servings would be $1. Now this makes you now think when you go next time to a restaurant, how much money they actually make. Now again, this is only pertaining to food cost. This does not explain anything about food cost percentage and menu selling price. Menu selling price is derived a little bit different, and it covers a lot more than just the cost. So, with that said, we have our fried egg done. Are there any questions so far? No? All right. We have a second recipe, which is the Eggs Benedict. I'm going to show you that too. Maybe we can show the numbers right away. The Eggs Benedict with the numbers, which is the filled-in Eggs Benedict. Now, this recipe is for 2 portions. We have figured out a total cost of $4.50. Now let's go right to the ingredients so we can actually check this out a little bit better. So your English muffin here, you have 4 each needed for the recipe. They come in a pack of 6, and a pack of 6 costs you $3.60. In your calculator, very easily to calculate, you take the $3.60, divide them by 6. That's now the cost of 1 English muffin. Looking back at the recipe, I need 4, so I multiply the 60 cents times 4, and I get $2.40. So again, very simple math. I have to see how much the basic product cost me. I have to divide it to get 1, and then I'll multiply it by how many I need for that particular recipe. Next item here is your butter. You have 70 cents times 20 cents, and you get 14 cents. So I use just 0.7 ounces of the butter for this recipe, and the cost for that would be 0.20 cents an ounce. So I multiply that, and I only get 0.14, it's just only 14 cents. All right, the next item here is bacon. I did bacon class last time. That was really fun too. I need 3.53 ounces, 3.53, and I multiply by the ounce price of 30 cents, 0.3, and I get $1.059. I round that up, so it's $1.06. So with all these other ingredients, I do the same thing. Again, how do I get to the ounce prices is, here we can do one like butter. So it says here that the ounce price was 20 cents. We would assume that we buy butter in a pound. So if you take the 20 cents times 16, that particular butter would be only $3.20 per pound, which is rather low, right? So $3.20 for a pound of butter And if I divide that by 16, I get the ounce price of 20 cents. Now I take the ounce price, multiply it by what I need, which is 70 cents, and I get my 14 cents for that particular recipe. So back and forth, when you go grocery shopping next time, you might want to look at your receipt, look at your packaging, and you can actually figure out at any time how much a recipe is going to cost you. We did the math for you from our 32 recipes we have in our program right now. You will be spending anywhere between $200 and $250 depending where you're at, in which region and so forth. And that helps us to tell you obviously how much that costs. But more importantly for you, as you progress in our program, as you get better with cooking, more people will come to you to ask you for catering, more people will come to you to ask you to do special events, cakes for baking and pastry. So please, look at what you spend, figure out your actual cost of your recipes, and at least get that covered. Next time when I see you again, we will probably be talking about food cost percentages. We'll talk about menu selling price, what is actually the proper way to get the selling price to a customer. You will figure out that a soup which costs you $1, most restaurants sell you for $3.50, if not more. Where's this coming from? So this is going to be our next class. Join in tomorrow. Chef Cesar will be doing the similar class in Spanish. Chef Susie on Thursday is doing, I think, sour bread, if I'm not mistaken, bread with sourdough starter. So thank you so much again for joining in. If we have no more questions, I wish you a great day, and give us some call if you have questions. Seth, any questions? No? Nothing?